What's up, hackers? Welcome to Saturday Hacker Day. My name is Taggart, and as always, we're going to get started with this week in cyber news. But a quick disclaimer before we get going: you ever watch a TV show and there's one episode and you notice oh, that actor definitely had a cold that day when they were filming? I'm real excited to be able to give you that exact same experience today. So if I am a little sniffly or I have to cough off mic, I apologize. I am a bit under the weather, so just a heads up there. Hopefully it won't get in the way of what we're trying to do today. So this week in cyber, just a couple of stories that I want to go over. First of all, as of, I believe, yesterday, we finally have a proof of concept available for the proxy not shell vulnerability, which has been patched as of this November's Patch Tuesday updates. So just as a refresher, the proxy not shell vulnerability was a kind of rehash of the proxy shell vulnerability in Exchange servers. And so now the first public proof of concept has been published. I believe it's still up. And so why does this matter that there is a POC? And I am going to link the POC in the chat. Why does it matter? Because as soon as there's a public proof of concept, the barrier to entry for exploiting the vulnerability goes down. And usually what starts happening is you see a bunch of automated attacks against external infrastructure. So if you are responsible for external infrastructure, especially Exchange servers, first of all, stop. Do not have external Exchange servers anymore. They are, for all intents and purposes, deprecated technology. Microsoft is not giving them any love. They want you to use Exchange Online. They want you to use Azure, and that is the product that they are clearly prioritizing. So you are running an Exchange server on the internet at your own risk. I'm sure this is not the last vulnerability of this sort that we will see in that product. Okay, staying on Microsoft for a bit. I'm sorry that sometimes the news is a little Microsoft heavy, but that's kind of the world of vulnerabilities, isn't it? So this was kind of like a horrible, no good, very bad week when it comes to vulnerabilities for Microsoft. So first of all, during the Patch Tuesday updates, they released a patch for part of Kerberos that impacted domain controllers. And if you're not familiar with Kerberos, it's an authentication scheme that governs how Active Directory works inside of an enterprise. A lot of Kerberos talk has happened on this stream. A lot of me being very confused about how to attack Kerberos and Husky trying to help me out with it. But at any rate, so there was a patch for Kerberos, sort of, on domain controllers. And the way that it worked was they were trying to update. This is the crazy part. They were trying to update the default encryption method for service principals, for objects in Active Directory, to AES 256. Totally good encryption standard, makes a lot of sense, love it. Unfortunately, when they did so, they seem to have transposed decimal and hexadecimal in their code. What ended up happening was that they ended up setting back the default for all service principals to RC4, a deprecated encryption type that, what's wild, isn't supported or isn't present on every kind of object in Active Directory. So what happened was the default was set back to RC4, and if you didn't have a superseding configuration in Kerberos, any object that didn't have RC available, which involved things like, group managed service accounts, users, computers, no big deal, stopped being able to authenticate. And as far as I can tell, based on some of the conversations I've been having, it's because of a transposed bit of code between RC4 and AES 256. It's like literally between 10 and 27 or whatever, in terms of what they changed. Now, there was originally a workaround, which was the worst idea since New Coke. I need to come up with a better analogy. That one's getting a little dated. But it was a pretty bad idea. The workaround that they had was to set the default encryption method, the workaround was to add RC4 back as a supported encryption method to every object in your domain. And Husky, since you're in the chat, I wonder if you can tell me why that seems like such a bad idea? Or anybody else can as well, but since Husky's here. Because anybody who does offensive work with Active Directory and Kerberos, if they hear RC4, there's usually one thing that comes to mind. Hey, there it is. Fun fact: the transposition to RC4 is what you force during Kerberoasting. Exactly. So this workaround was essentially saying, Kerberoast your entire environment, make RC4 available for your entire environment. So not awesome. The good news is, as of yesterday, an emergency out-of-bound patch has been released. The trick is, it's not going to come down through WSUS. You are going to have to go to the Microsoft Support Center and download the KBs yourself if you're responsible for domain controllers that had the November patches installed. So just be aware of that you're going to have to go get those manually, which is a real cool thing for system administrators to have to do. Let me link that story before moving on, which also has the links to the downloads. Next up, a new patch on ADCS that makes all certificates have users applied. Yeah, they're just trying to do you a favor, Husky. Okay, and then finally, this story was just some really cool research that I saw on Linux. And I want to kind of go through the story with you just because it is that neat. So there's this research on this thing called Shuffle Cake. It sounds delicious, but what it actually is this method for what they're calling plausible deniability for multiple hidden file systems. So totally wild. What happens here is that they use a kernel module and then a command line tool. So these two things in place. So you do have to have root in order to do this. So this isn't, I want to be clear, this isn't like an initial compromise thing. This is after privilege escalation. And this thing is not just an offensive tool. It also has implications for operational security for tradecraft and for sensitive environments where you need to be able to hide information. The idea here is that it creates security through what I would describe as absolute obscurity. Yeah, the summary here is probably the best way to say it. Shuffle Cake is a tool for Linux that allows creation of multiple hidden volumes on a storage device in such a way that it is very difficult, even under forensic inspection, to prove the existence of such volumes. Each volume is encrypted with a different secret key scrambled across the empty space of an underlying existing storage medium, and indistinguishable from random noise when not decrypted. Even if the presence of the Shuffle Cake software itself cannot be hidden, and hence the presence of secret volumes is suspected, the number of volumes is also hidden. This allows the user to create a hierarchy of plausible deniability where most hidden secret volumes are buried under less hidden decoy volumes, whose passwords can be surrendered under pressure. In other words, a user can plausibly lie to a coercive adversary about the existence of hidden data by providing a password that unlocks decoy data. Every volume can be managed independently as a virtual block device, formatted with any file system of choice, and mounted and dismounted like a normal disk. I don't know if that's detonating for everybody, but imagine you had a hypersensitive system that could be perhaps confiscated by an authoritarian regime, and you were coerced to decrypt your system. What Shuffle Cake would allow you to do is decrypt your system, wink, where you would give away your decoy volumes, but the rest of your sensitive data could still remain hidden, even under forensic investigation. So that's kind of the altruistic, the moral use of it. And of course, the offensive use of it would be a rootkit or something else like that could be hidden essentially indefinitely. Even so, again, even if Shuffle Cake were able to be detected on a system, what Shuffle Cake had put on the system may not be. So that's cool, right? So the link to the write-up there is in the chat, and I highly encourage you, if you're interested in this sort of thing, to take a look at Shuffle Cake. I know I will be playing with it. Okay, and that does it for our news. Today we are going to be taking on AWS, and we're going to be doing some hacking in AWS. Now, this is an area of growth for me. I spend most of my cloud time in Azure. And so I'm not super familiar with AWS. And one of the frustrating things about cloud is that you would think that the concepts translate, and they do broadly, but the way that every cloud provider structures its resources is so different that you really do have to essentially learn a new language for each one, right? Working in AWS is really functionally completely different from working in Azure, completely functionally different from working in GCP or Alley Cloud. I've never worked with Alley Cloud, but I imagine it's different. So we're going to focus on AWS today, and you can play along. If you want to play along, you're going to want to have an AWS account. Free tier is fine. And you're going to want to have the AWS command line installed. I'll actually walk through that first. So without further ado, let's get hacking. All right, so we're using flaws.cloud. This is the challenge that we are working with, and yes, it is HTTP. Kind of by design. So this is where we're going to start. And as I said, if you want to install the latest AWS CLI, you want to go here. Now you're going to need an AWS account. And then you will need to go to IAM. I'm not going to show this to you on stream because I don't want you to see my console with that stuff. But you're going to go to the IAM section and create new credentials for an account. And you can give it AWS admin if you want. I think EC2 admin is actually all the permissions that this thing will need for today. And then you're going to use, once AWS, the command line is installed, you're going to run AWS, not ZWS. Let me zoom that in a little bit more. That could be a little bit more legible for all of you. AWS configure and set up a profile with a name. That's usually the way that I like to do it. And then AWS will prompt you to add your access key and then access key ID and the secret access key and your default region and your default output, which is usually JSON for me. And that's it. You will have your AWS command line configured for our work today. And then just go ahead and navigate to flaws.cloud. Now, I found this through a really cool Git repo that I want to make you aware of, because I was thinking, like, I knew I wanted to do something about cloud security, and I knew that somebody had already put together some lists about this. So luckily, Anderson Lin has done so. This awesome cloud security list has a bevy of really nice tools across multiple categories for what you might want to check out. So we're going to be using a number of them today. Well, we'll be using flaws.cloud, but if we have time, we're going to check out Terragoat and Chekhov as well. There's a bunch of these. Sad Cloud is really cool too, although Sad Cloud can get expensive, so we're not going to do that one. We'll go through a bunch of these as we kind of navigate this. Another tool that I want to make mention of, and I may install this one right now, is PackU. This is, I think, probably the most well-known out-of-the-box tool for attacking AWS. Maybe it's not pronounced PackU. Maybe it's PackU. No GitHub Copilot. So, PackU just drove 30 kilometers back home to watch the stream. Thank you. Hey, Sohail. Thank you. That seems excessive. I hope that it lives up to your expectations. They are recorded, though. So, with Pakku. Pakku is that's a Star Wars planet. That's probably why it is like that, actually. AWS Exploitation Framework. Now, they're telling you to install it with pip. But we know better, don't we, friends? We know better than to install things directly with pip. Pythonistas, what is the preferred way to install Python-based command line tools? Cyber Overflow, Ven is a super good guess. We can actually add one more layer to make it even better. This is actually covered in the first video of Python for Defenders Part 2. The answer is pipx. So pipx will create virtual environments for tools like CrackMapExec that have command line interfaces, right? So it's the preferred way to install things like that. Hey, Oreo Bite, 12 months. Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary. Thank you for all the song requests. So we're going to install PackU with pipx. Just kidding. Sudo... Did I have to reinstall something? Sudo, sudo pip3 install pipx first, and then we'll go. Error installing PackU. Okay, I guess we can't do that with that. So my bad. I guess we are going to do it with pip. Would you recommend doing AWS Architect Pro so that flaws.cloud can be understood better? I have associate certification. I don't think it's necessary. I'll be honest, I'm not that up on AWS certifications, so... But I will say, I don't have one, and I don't think that you need it to understand what's going on in flaws.cloud. I think a general understanding of cloud assets, and in particular the security rules, is enough to get you through flaws.cloud. Do we have PackU? We do. Phenomenal. Okay. So when it comes time, we will use PackU. But for now, let's just get started with flaws.cloud and see what's going on here. So flaws.cloud is designed very much like... oh, man. I'm totally blanking. Some of the over-the-wire games, right, where... each level is going to unlock the next. And so you move on from stage to stage to stage. So we're on the first level here. I believe there are 6. This level is buckets of fun. See if you can find the first subdomain. So we need a subdomain. A couple of ways we can go about this. Let's not think first about AWS stuff. Let's just think, okay, we're doing subdomain enumeration. What's the first thing we might do? We might fire up OWASP's amass, which I have, and we'll do amass enum-d flaws.cloud. And that will go enumerate all known subdomains for flaws.cloud. This may find things it may not, and then if it doesn't, I'll use the Intel tool to learn more just about kind of the ASN and things like that of flaws.cloud and learn kind of where it's registered. Because I may be able to guess that this thing is hosted on AWS, but I don't know for sure. And of course, buckets would suggest that it is S3, right? The blob storage. But I don't know for sure. So we're going to confirm that. That's what amass is doing for us right now. Enumerating subdomains. By the way, so as a reminder for Amass, which I had a bit of a I had a rocky relationship with for a long time because I couldn't get it to work. And then after talking to, whoa, that worked great. After talking to the developer, I learned the problem was I was using Amass as installed in Kali, and the Kali Linux install of Amass just is fundamentally broken in ways that I don't entirely understand. Like, it can't seem to create its database. So what you do is, if you have Amass installed in Kali, you do sudo apt remove Kali, or sudo apt remove Amass, and then go to the OWASP Amass GitHub repo and get the release there and install it manually. Drop it in user local bin or wherever you want to put it, and then it works like a charm. Look at this. Okay, so you love to see it. Amass actually got this for us in one, where we did this enumeration. We found a bunch of these subdomains. Now, this is not the way that we're supposed to do this, right? We even found the end domain, which I don't know if we can get to directly, but we found the subdomain, right? That's pretty wild. Let's see if that did enough for us. For level 2. Nice. Now, we're not going to be able to get away with doing it that easily for everything, I don't think. But a couple of other things to note. So look what else Amass told us. Not only did it discover some of these subdomains, and I don't think we can just jump to the end here for all of these, because there's like directories and things like that you have to find as well. So it's not just like, aha, you lose. That's not the point of what using Amass for this one. But for the first one, it was, right? Discovering that it was on Amazon. And then the other way that you can do this, right, is we have these IP addresses. And if we wanted to, we could learn a little bit more if we did like dig flaws.cloud. We would learn that it's also on one of those 52s, whatever those are reporting back. Or not. Oh, dang it. Hold on a second. Sudo nmtui. I have a DNS server configured from doing some try hack me stuff that is garbage. So let me fix that right now. Yeah. Let's get rid of that. Nope, back to the, okay. I think it's just escape. And I think I have to restart the networking service. Yeah, okay. Sudo systemctl restart network manager. Oh, come on. Remove. There we go. One more time. Thank you. That's by the way, that's going to make the network a lot snappier because it's not failing off of a DNS connection anymore. Okay, so I have this, right? I get the IP address, and then if I use NSLOOKUP, you'll notice that I get this I get this name equals S3 website uswest2.amazonaws.com. What that tells me, right, is that, okay, this thing is it's not just that it's an AWS thing. It's that the website itself is hosted on an S3 bucket. Does that make sense? And so what we know about that then is we can actually use the command line to do AWS, what is it, S3 LS, just to see if it works, right? And the way that we would do this is AWS S3 LS, S3 flaws.cloud. Now, when we do it like this, we're going to get a fail. Okay? It says you can configure credentials. If I do it with my profile that I set up, AWS CLI, I don't get a fail. But the other way I could have done that without providing my profile is if I had the no sign request option. Okay. Just kidding? No sign request, I think, is right. What was the error that I got? Now it's just giving me like... Huh, weird. Okay. I was under the impression that we could do it completely anonymously with no sign request. But... Oh, wait a second. I messed that up. There we go. Hang on a second. Let's try that again. There we go. I just had the command wrong. We can do it without providing a profile, right? So this is what happens when you make an S3 bucket readable by the entire universe. And by the way, notice, so we kind of like did this just by DNS enumeration, but doing it AWS style. If we went back, look, there was the secret HTML. So if we go back to flaws.cloud and go to /secret, whoops. Right? So that's like the more AWS-y way to solve that particular challenge. And that's the way I think they want us to do these, right? Is to learn what you can do with the AWS CLI. But I do think it's cool to note that very often DNS enumeration will show you things as well. Amass is an amazingly powerful tool. All right, so we're on level 2. It says, on AWS, you can set up S3 buckets with all sorts of permissions and functionality, including using them to host static files, which is sometimes a good idea. A lot of places do that for images and CSS files that they need to load into websites. It also is where Notion stores all of its stuff, right? When you upload an image or a file or anything, when you upload static content to a Notion account or a Notion page, you don't own that anymore. What happens is the Notion client is actually using AWS permissions in the background and shoving it into an S3 storage bucket, which will then, the link to that asset in that storage bucket will then be provided to you to access the thing. So we have directory listing of S3 buckets, which is possible. And these are specific case studies, which is kind of cool. So we have directory listing of Legal Robot and Shopify. These are links to HackerOne reports, which you can check out if you're interested. Avoiding the mistake. Don't do this. Don't grant everyone access to the S3 bucket, because that means the universe. Okay. The next level is fairly similar with a slight twist. You're going to need your own AWS account for this. You just need the free tier. That kind of tells me that this one is like, I need to have an account to sign the request, as we did originally with AWS S3. But I don't need to have their... I can be any account, right? So what I'll do is I'm going to try to do an S3 LS on this subdomain. Okay? So again, look at this. AWS S3 LS and then the S3 URL as opposed to an HTTP URL. And then let's see what happens. Oh, of course, I forgot. We are, in fact, using an account. So I use the profile AWS CLI that I configured earlier. And now I can get to the same sort of thing. I have this HTML file that I was able to enumerate off of the S3 bucket. This is going a lot faster than I thought. There are 6 challenges in this. Then we're already at 3. If you ever do find... oh, sorry. Let me back this up. This kind of thing is why subdomain enumeration is so important. And noticing when your target, if you're a pen tester, is using AWS, because you will find this stuff. It's pretty common. Takashi Kintaro, thank you so much for the follow. Arigatou gozaimashita. All right, level 3 it is. Looks like we may in fact be doing Terragoat today. Similar to opening permissions to everyone, people accidentally open permissions to any authenticated AWS user, which is what just happened, right? They might mistakenly think that this will only be users of their account, when in fact it means anyone that has an AWS account. Which, why? What are the actual use cases for that? Outside of AWS itself. That should, I would imagine that's an extremely rare requirement. I mean, I can see the rationale for opening a non-sensitive bucket to everybody on the internet, right? If you're hosting static files, you got to do that. But what situation would require it to be AWS, any AWS account in the world? That's probably a failure of imagination on my part, but I cannot think of one. Kentone, or Kent1, the first Kent, thank you so much for the follow. Well, you're very welcome either way. Okay. So level 3. The next level is fairly similar with a slight twist. Time to find your first AWS key. I bet you'll find something that will let you list what other buckets are. Interesting. Okay. So we're going to take this domain and we're going to do the same thing that we did before. We're going to use AWS S3 and list it. See if there's anything interesting in there. Oh, snap. There's a .git directory. So now we have to learn how to copy stuff down. Let's make a level 3 folder just to keep it clean. And so here we're going to do AWS profile S3, not LS, but CP. And I believe... Yeah, you need a recursive option to get folders. What did I do wrong? Oh, there we go. And notice that fish and oh my fish discovered that this is a Git directory now. It's a Git repo now. Because I just essentially cloned down the folder, and now it's a Git repo, right? If we lsal, there's a .git, which means I can use Git. Oops, accidentally added something I shouldn't have. That is what you love to see. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to do git reset hard head so that I'm able to reset this stuff correctly. So we're going to turn this from red to green. Right? So where we are, now we're at this commit where it says accidentally added something I shouldn't have. But the whole point is this commit removed it. If I do git diff with the previous commit, there it is. You can see what got removed, right? I don't even have to git checkout back to the old commit. I can just use git diff to see what changed, right? So that's cool. What we will do with that is we will use AWS configure profile level 3. We will create a new profile that we can then use. AWS access key, that, and AWS secret access key, this. This is why you need to be so careful with these credentials. Default region name. I'm going to do US. I think they are using US West 1. And JSON. Okay, cool. So now that we have a new identity, the first thing that you want to do is figure out what this new thing, this new identity can do. And the STS subcommand of the AWS CLI is the security token service. So this is kind of like your next stop. As soon as you have a new identity that you've discovered, to start figuring out who you are, kind of the next thing is like get caller identity and maybe get access key info. So, Sahil asks, can I run a mass as you did, or do you need to install it? So you may have missed this, Sahil, but basically if you are using the out-of-the-box mass in Kali, uninstall it and go get it from GitHub. Oh, look, it's right there. It's handy. Yeah, you want to go grab it from the releases. Version 3.2. I'm sorry, version 3.20 is the most recent one. So let's try this. So AWS profile level 3, STS, get caller identity. Okay. So that's kind of cool. It tells us that we have a, this is the ARN, which is the AWS resource name. And it tells us that it's a user called backup. Interesting. Um, it says that will let you list what other buckets are. So one of the things that's a little confusing, actually, no, there's a lot of stuff that's confusing about the AWS CLI. But if we look at the help for the S3 subcommand, you'll notice that there's basically just like these, like very few commands, right? It's like cp ls mb mv presign rb rm sync and website. Nothing about learning about S3 permissions or anything else like that. That's actually underneath a different sub command. And if you want to learn about all of them, you can go to AWS help and you'll find out all of the things. There are so many. There are so many. I truly believe that most of your time when you're starting doing this stuff is just spent learning the ins and outs of each CLI's idiosyncrasies. And that's definitely true in the Azure world as well. The Azure world ones are arguably even crazier. I should pause for a moment. Does anybody else have questions about what we've done so far? We've enumerated S3 bucket contents. We have now extracted an AWS account or secret key and access key that we can use. So IAM credentials basically is what we have. No questions. I'll address the how do you learn this question, which is something that comes up. No joke. The best, I will say, the best material that I have found for this, and I'm certainly not getting paid to say this, is from the Black Hills information security adjacent company, Anti-Siphon. Anti-Siphon training. They have, I believe this one's one of the on-demands. Yes. Bo Bullock, also known as Daft Hack, has a course on breaching the cloud, and it was far and away the best. One of the best offensive security trainings I've ever taken, and it was definitely for the cloud as good as I learned more about cloud security in this course than I did in SANS 501. Or sorry, 510. 510 is the cloud security. I'm not a huge SANS booster. Like, okay, if you want to go get the certs and put some letters after your name, that's cool. I'm not a huge fan of it because they're not practical exams. And this was all hands-on. It was all labs. Also, the SANS Cloud course cost me money, man. Even if, like, forget the cost of the course, which my employer paid for, they straight up lied about how much it would cost to run the cloud stuff. They were like, oh yeah, it might run you like 20, 30 bucks to run all the stuff we're going to do for all the labs. I clocked $70 to $80 doing not every optional lab in the course, which was not cool. Anyway, if you want to learn more about this, Breaching the Cloud with Bo Bullock, I think is best around. It ain't cheap. I'll be straight with you. It ain't cheap. These things are like $400, I think. Let's find out. $575. So it's less than a SANS course if you're paying full price for SANS, but it's definitely an investment. But what you get is exactly. But what you get is, I think, like full disclosure, I'm a Black Hills super fan. Do you retain access to them? So Cobra, I did the live course, and they weren't recorded, but what you get are the slides, and I took copious notes, which I think is the way to go. And the labs are yours, right? They give you access to the Git repos, and you can just go do those and do them again and again. All right, so the S3 API subcommand here is actually closer to what we want. So let's examine that and learn what we can do with that. If you can get on demand, you get a ton. Yeah, for sure. And I don't know, the Black Hills folks are just like excellent people. I don't know. I'm very happy with what they've done for the community. They've done a lot for me personally. I think a lot of my passion for this industry came from feeling welcomed at my first Wild West Hack and Fest. Now I'm just getting sappy. Okay, so let's see. We've got create, but notice this is where like you do stuff with S3. Like list buckets, right? So let's try that out with our AWS profile level 3. Let's try S3 API list buckets and see what we can do here. Oh, yeah. Now, I may not be able to access all of these. For the cost of one SANS course, you get 5 seats of anti-siphon for a year. Or, do you work for anti-siphon? Okay, so we just got all this JSON back. By the way, if you don't like this formatting, right, you can always use JQ. Which I believe in this case, will this work? I always have to like piecemeal my JQ queries. Okay, buckets dot name, right? Nope. All right, I'm not messing around with JQ too much today. But the point is made that you can pipe this to JQ and get buckets. Oh, wait, is it select dot name? Sorry. No? That didn't do anything. Boo. Freaking JQ. This is going to drive me crazy. I'm sorry. Every time I have to do this, I swear, I'm going to just like write a different JQ with a syntax that makes sense to me. JQ-R buckets.name. Sin, please have saved me here. R gets rid of the color, right? No way. Oh, dot buckets, dot name. Nope. Yeah, JU's raw, and I don't think that matters for us right now. I actually don't want it raw, but that's not correct. .foo.bar. If I, the problem is, I think. I think it's, because what do we have working? Dot, buckets, right? Dot, yeah. So JQ.buckets works. Dot name. Do I have to put the array in between? There it is. There it is. You need the array indicator. Feels like a different dialect of regex. Yeah, a little bit. Okay. Yeah. Exactly, Python shoe. That was gonna stick in my craw for a minute. Okay, so now we're gonna do level 3 S3 LS. This bucket here, which shows us, oh no, we want level 4, right? Because we're trying to get to level 4. Why did I do that? The profile is still level 3, but the URL is level 4. There we go. The specified bucket does not exist. I want to confirm that though. Region US West. 1, 2. No, okay. The region. I just want to make sure I wasn't doing something funny with regions, because that can happen. Wait. I've got. Yep, I saw it. Thank you, Roflo. I saw it too. Yes. Okay, access denied. That's like fine. Let's go back to our challenge here. Time to find your first AWS key, which we found, and we listed buckets. We found level 4, right? Which presumably is what we're after. But we can't list it? But can we just visit the domain? There we go. So the trick there was that the leaked git key gave us the ability to enumerate the other containers. Now, again, keep in mind that if we go back up to our the amass output, I just want the I hate the Intel subcommand. I never understand. Like, I don't want the who is. I mean, whatever. We have the list of domains, right? That we saw, and I'm curious. All right, we'll do it this way. Amass viz d3 flaws.cloud. Be that way. Oh, Amass. You're so good. So is this the same subdomain? BES68. Sure is. So in a not AWS way, Amass actually got it. Oh my god. I've been going for an hour and 16 minutes, and nobody has corrected me on the subject, Chiron. Listen, I rely on you to call me on all the mistakes that I make. It's a really important part of this process. You gotta hold up your end of the bargain here. All right. I love this thing. Whee! The Amass visualization with D3. So helpful. All right. So there were a couple of ways to get to this one, right? Because we had the DNS enumeration. SuperX Hacker just got here. Yeah, okay. In between your hard sell of anti-siphon courses, you could have maybe said, oh, hey, by the way, the subject Chiron's wrong. Okay, now, the lesson learned here is don't put AWS keys in public places. If you commit an AWS key to a Git repository, you have to blow it up. And I don't mean git reset hard. I mean delete the repo and try again. There's no rewriting that history securely. You're done. if you commit a credential or recycle the key or revoke the key and generate a new one, right? Probably easier to do. But if for whatever reason that thing is locked and you can't revoke the key, you're gonna have to revoke the key anyway. But like you're gonna have to. Let me. Let me show you this. This is why this is so hard. Actually, you know what's kind of cool? I now have access to the GitHub search, the new GitHub search. So let's give that a shot. If I look for this pattern, I gotta sign in. I don't feel like doing that. So we do grep.app. Let's do the same thing. AWS access key equals. And then let's even do this. We'll do it with a regular expression. And we'll do AZ 0 through 9. One or more. So plus. So this is looking pretty okay. Oh, I do want it to be case sensitive. Thank you very much. Ah, see? When we turn it to case sensitive, look. Yikes! These are real. So just be aware of that. This sucks. Don't do this. I'm glad to see most of these are garbage. But this is something to search for. Okay. Right, back to level 4. So, for the next level, you need to get access to the web page running on an EC2 at that flaws.cloud. Okay, it'll be useful to know that a snapshot was made of that EC2 shortly after Nginx was set up on it. Okay. Admin. No. Backup. No. Okay. So the level 3 account that we had, right? If we go back to the STS command, we learned that this user was called backup. So maybe it has access to stuff that that is backed up. Oops. So if like what do we want to do, like EC2, right? So if it's AWS profile level 3 EC2 help, I believe this is where the snapshots live. Describe snapshots, and then list snapshots, right? List just says list snapshots. All right, well, I'll do describe will do for me then. Describe snapshots. Taken a while. It's not erroring out though, which is good news. Oh my. That's so many. I think I need to do something to... That's not... Those aren't my snapshots. Those are all snapshots. If we look at describe snapshots, yeah, there's like public snapshots as well. There's an owner IDs that we can use. Owner ID. Okay. So this actually goes back to the get caller identity, right? Where the account number is what we can use for that owner ID, I believe. So if we do describe snapshots owner ID and this guy, it's a snapshots blank, and this is again where we want to check the region. US West 1. What about 2? Aha! See, the region matters. And you want to be aware of that when you're running these commands. Just because you find nothing in one region doesn't mean you found nothing at all. Okay, so, so we have a snapshot ID. Flaws backup. Describe snapshots. Describe snapshot attribute. No. Because describe snapshot didn't really... We just saw that, right? Describe snapshot is what we just did. And it doesn't tell us that there's any ACLs on this thing. Now, maybe that's because there aren't any, which in that case means what we could do. This is a little wacky, but what we could do is use our own AWS account, create an EC2 instance, right? Spin that up, and then mount this snapshot as a volume and check it out using that. And that's, in fact, what I'm going to try to do. So let me log into my AWS account here. I'm doing this a little off screen. That was in US West 2, right? I will put some stuff in US West 2. Okay. So we'll launch an instance. I like using Ubuntu. Amazon Linux is fine, but it's fine. And again, so you can do this on the free tier. We're not going to need a bunch of horsepower for this. The T2 micro should be fine. And yeah, I'm going to generate a new key pair, which you don't get to see. And allow SSH from my IP. Good. That actually looks perfect. Okay. Tell you a secret. You can, so this .pem, this private key that I've downloaded, right? If you use that with Linux, you have to change the permissions, right? To read only, chmod 0400. If you do that with PowerShell, you don't. And you get the same prompt at the end of the day, right? So just kind of a cool trick. Let me load up a Windows terminal. It exists somewhere. I guess I'm using a brand new one. Okay. Here's my cool PowerShell. At some point I'll go through. It's not super difficult to configure PowerShell to be neat like this. And for the creature comforts, it's actually quite nice. Okay. Oh, I need I need the IP. Let's go to that instance. It's still initializing. Okay. Well, the other thing we want to do is we're going to mount a snapshot to it, right? Once it's up and running. Oh, it says it is running. Now, I have storage. I don't want to replace the root volume, but what I do want to do. Nope, 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 nope. Okay. This is where I want to be. So I want to create a new volume, and I'm going to create it from a snapshot ID. This is the trick. I'm going to go get the snapshot ID of this thing, right? And then I'm going to create that volume. Okay. It doesn't tell me how large it is, unfortunately. I don't think I need that, though. Volume size 8. So, it doesn't actually have to be 100 gigs. I can make it, because it's the default root volume, right? So I can resize that back to 8 gigs. And I should be good. That's solid, and then I'll be able to mount that onto... Once it's created, I should be able to attach it to my instance. Now, let's pregame that and go over to EC2 again. And get the public IP. And we will use PowerShell to SSH with it. SSHI flaws.cloud Ubuntu at. Boom. There we go. I was like, I know there's a way to split windows, just because I can. Okay. This is still creating. Come on. Oh, it's enabled. It still says creating, though. Ah, perfect. Now it's available. And we're going to attach the volume. Availability is on US West 2A. Boo! What's the point? Oh, I screwed that up. I'm sorry. That was my bad. I put it in the wrong availability zone. Let's delete that. Let's do it again. Emily, thank you so much for the follow. All right. Create volume, US West 2C. And 8 gigs. And specify snapshot ID. Nope. Do it. Whoa, and a subscription. Emily, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. All right. Apologies for my corporeal husk. It's cough drop time. I regret to inform you, and me really, that I am not a construct made of pure cyberspace. Although if wishing made it so. Okay. This thing's available. Let's attach this volume. Hey, there we go. There's our instance. It's available. And it's going to be a dev SDF. Phenomenal. So that's mounted. And so if we go over to our machine, if we do lsblk, list block devices, we'll see it's not really SDF, right? It's dev xvdf. And there's the partition. So what we will do is we will sudo, I think we're just going to be root for this. So let's just become root. We'll make dir mount flaws, and then we will mount dev xvdf1 to mount flaws. Mount. Why did I write MNT? Mount. Okay. cd mnt flaws. Hey, look, a Linux file system. All right, there are a lot of ways to shave this yak. I'm going to look at user accounts first. All right, nothing there. Anything in opt? No. Interesting. Oh, I'm being dumb. I'm sorry. Opt. There we go. Less var HTML. Okay. Nothing crazy there. We, of course, could just vim var HTML index.html. Come on. I should have just, you know what? I'm going to do that right now. If you are working in a complete Linux file system and you don't need to deal with anything else, you can use chroot to change your root. Although I don't have any guarantee that I have all of the tools here. So for now, we'll leave it as is. Let's see, vim var HTML index.html. So I didn't get the password, but I did bypass it because I can just look at the level 5, right? But where is the password? One thing we might do. What will chroot do for us? You know what? Let's do it now. So we'll do chroot /. It'll change the root. So watch what happens to my prompt. See that? Now my root for the shell's file system is that mounted directory, which means my shell is going to be accessing things on that file system. right? If I cat Etsy password, it's this thing's Etsy password. Okay. Shoot. Let's find. Is it -U or is it -O? Defined by a user. I think it's user. I'm going to use the UID to dev. No. So like transferring computers more than just mounting. It's more than just mounting, because changing the route changes where your shell's path is looking for things, right? So I'll give you a perfect example of when you use, this is like the most I use chroot. Oh, hey, look, that actually worked. Here's a perfect example of when I use chroot. If I'm repairing a broken Linux install, something went wrong, Linux kernel didn't update, grub broke, whatever it is. If I use a live disk, right, and I'm running Linux off of a USB drive, what I will do is I'll become root, I'll mount the broken file system right onto a /mnt, but then I will change my directory into the root of that file system, the /mnt directory, wherever it is, and then I will chroot, and now all of the stuff that I would expect to have there is there on my shell. And that makes it a lot easier to triage, make repairs, whatever else I need to do. So that's a very common way of working with Linux file system. I believe it's also something you will do in some pretty wacky Mac OS recovery stuff, which I've had to do a time or two. Okay, but so check this out. We found this setup nginx.sh, which I don't know why we didn't see that. Oh, because I was looking at the wrong dang. I put a / before I chrooted. That's why you do this, right? To prevent that from happening. Okay, well, let's cat that out. Boom, there's our password. So if we go back to our browser here, flaws, and there's the password. Hey, we got it. And then we have the same link that we saw before. So there were a couple of different ways, right? As soon as you mounted that volume, you don't need that password anymore because you can just go look at the website. But we got the password as well. All right, let's do a little cleanup there. I'm going to exit out of this and destroy the volume. I'm going to leave the instance up just in case we need it again, though. Sudo umount mnt flaws. Yeah, good. And then go over to my EC2 here, and it's not in use anymore. But we will detach the volume. Let that happen eventually, I hope. Take your time. Yes, force detach. Get it out of here. I was just impatient. And then we'll blow it away. don't need that volume anymore. You always want to have some good AWS hygiene, because you don't want stuff kicking around costing you money or just taking up space. I don't know. It's so easy too with EC2 to just have a bunch of junk lying around. This is something I really prefer about Azure, is that with Azure resource groups, it's much easier for me to see all of the stuff that I've made at any one point and group it, and then use that resource group as a billing scope, all of those things. Like, you can do that stuff in AWS, but I feel like it's almost intentionally harder to do. All right. What are we doing now? So it says AWS allows you to make snapshots of EC2s and databases. The main purpose for that is to make backups, but people sometimes use snapshots to get access back to their own EC2s when they forget the password. This also allows attackers to get access to things. Quick aside. This process that we just went through is the meat and potatoes of forensics in cloud work. So, I'll give you an example. There was a case that I worked a while ago where there was like a web compromise and a coin miner installed, the usual. But it was on an EC2 instance. So what you wanted to do was not only look at the running instance, but look at snapshots of the drive. And because there was a database connected to it, you were also going to mount the RDS, the database snapshot as well. So working with these AWS assets, it's kind of interesting because it's a totally different process than what you would do forensically for like a physical device, right? Chain of custody has to be handled slightly differently because there's no, like, you can't bag it, right? You can't tag it. So how do you handle those assets in the cloud is a different conversation. Golden Ratio says, I've had flaws bookmarked for the last few months. Glad I can see a demo. Yeah, it's really fun. I like it a lot. It's a nice intro to basic security configs with practical examples. So this one says, this EC2 has a simple HTTP-only proxy on it. Here are some examples of its usage. Flaws.cloud. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Does anybody know right off the bat what this is going to be? This is a fun one, especially for folks who haven't seen it done for cloud stuff before. Scholarship Trace, thank you so much for that follow. Note takers, what are we doing with this? So check this out. Proxy flaws.cloud. So if I put any website, no matter what we say J. Edgar Hoover will appear and destroy us. If we put in taggertech.com, or if we put in always be branding, taggartinstitute.org. Responsible red teaming launches on Monday, November 21st. I would say get your credit cards ready, except that it's a free course because Husky is insane. Okay, so whatever we put in here after the proxy, the application running on this EC2 instance, or whatever it is, I think it's an EC2 instance, is going to make that HTTP request on our behalf. So here's the thing about that. Yeah. If we go to hacking the cloud, oh, they did reorganize this. there is this thing called the IMDS living on the system, the Instance Metadata Service. And it is a local HTTP service. Look at this. So 169.254, 169.254. This is a link local address, right? Self-assigned address. Not link local, but it's a self-assigned address, right? It's a reserved IP. And even on our existing EC2 instance, if I curl 169.254, 169.254. Oh, cool. I guess it's not running there. Why is that true? Did I do that wrong? No. No, yes, I did. I was like, that's the wrong IP. There we go. Look, there's a metadata service. And I can kind of walk my way through this. I'm not going to reveal any secrets here. But, like, see? There's stuff. And so, including user data, which is insanely... yeah, there's no user data, but insanely, user data is something that people will use to store scripts and stuff for startup or even setting environment variables. And so if you get onto an EC2 instance and you have access to that user data key, you have that if they're using it. Okay. And it's not just if you, this is the thing that's crazy. It's not just if you get onto the box, right? What we're talking about in this vulnerability here is essentially a rarefied, it's an instance of, let me ask, friends, this vulnerability, if we're able to hit that 169.254 from here, that is an instance of what OWASP top 10 vulnerability? I mean, it's a cloud thing because it's the metadata service, but it's a specific instance of what attack type? Hello, Karn 007.
24/7 synthwave with all your favorite artists.
What's up? This is
No takers?
1984.
This is Celerec LA3.
This is FM84.
Hey everyone, this is Arcade High.
I'm Alex, aka Highway Superstar.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so what we're talking about, friends, is server-side request forgery. SSRF. This is an example of it for real. Real deal server-side request forgery if you do something like this. Watch. We do 169.254, 169.254. Behold. And there's this latest here, so we'll do that. Latest. I'll check user data. Nothing there. So we'll try metadata. Oh yeah. Now notice that this one has an IAM. And you know we're after those credentials, so let's go to IAM. What? Security credentials? That seems fine. Now we have a second AWS account here. So this was all from level 4, right? So we will do exactly that. We will create a new AWS account, profile level 4. Now, there is one thing that I think I'll have to do manually, and I might have to take that off screen because I don't want you to see my AWS creds, right? I can configure the access key and the secret access key, but I can't configure the token. Okay? I have to actually add that to a file directly. So I will be doing that. But let's do this. So access key ID is that. And the secret access key is this. Default region name is US West 2. JSON. Okay. And then hold please while I move this over. And add the extra stuff. I should mention, right? I should mention that the I'm sorry. I'm like I'm doing too many things at once. I apologize. But the AWS command line stores credentials in plain text. Right? Which is no good. AWS session token is the AWS session token. That's the thing. So Vim, credentials. Then I gotta copy all of that base 64 over. I know you can't see what I'm doing. That'll be solved in just a second. Okay. Apologies. Just a little bit of OPSEC there. So basically, I had to manually add the AWS token to this account because it wasn't going to be there by itself. Now, with that, we're going to learn what this thing is. So AWS profile level 4 now. STS get caller identity. Who am I? No! Security token included in the request is invalid. Ugh. What? Ah. Why was all my hints? All right. Oh, the instructions are see if you can use this proxy to figure out how to list the contents of the level 6 bucket at level 6 flaws.cloud. Those are the actual instructions. So let's try that. Do S3 LS. The AWS access key you provided does not. It's just in our records. Let's make sure we have that set. And actually, it should be level 5. Um, and then I'm gonna try to do this right. I'm gonna do this yeah, sorry, I have to take this off screen again one more time. Okay. I renamed it to level 5, so let's try it one more time. I don't know what happened there. I must have mispasted the session token or the access key or the session token or something. But this is the trick. That there's this level 6, right? And then there's this hidden folder. So from here, like, yes, we can go to level 6, but it says level 6 is hosted in a subdirectory, but to figure out that directory, you need to play level 5 properly. Which we just did, because when we did the list buckets, we found this directory with the random name here. And this is a really important lesson. The IP address is a magic IP in the cloud world that all use metadata services. There are different headers that you sometimes have to set. Like if we look up Azure's. Oh, version 2 has added protections against SSRF and requires the user to create and use a token. That's probably why it didn't work. Actually, no, it did work for us. Now, let's look at it in Azure, because Azure has a similar situation. Hacking the cloud doesn't have enough stuff yet about... But you know who does? I don't know if you knew this, but Hacktricks has a new book. There is now cloud.hacktricks.xyz. So everybody knows about Hacktricks, right? It's one of the first things that comes up when you Google stuff if you're doing Hack the Box or Try Hack Me. But it turns out that there is also a cloud version now. If we search for metadata, GCP, AWS. Come on. Nothing for Azure? I know it's there. I guess this is a growth area. Yeah. Microsoft will tell you how to do it. Just like that. Okay. So level 6. This is the final challenge. You're getting a user access key that has the security audit policy attached to it. See what else it can do and what else you might find in this AWS account. Okay. All right. First things first. Let's add that thing to our AWS profiles. So AWS configure, profile level 6. Oh, I bet that's what happened before. It stopped copying at the plus. Default region in US West 2 and JSON. Boy, chat is quiet today. How was everybody's week? I had a wild week. I started a company. I guess that means... I don't know what that means. But, like, I've never actually worked for a for-profit company except for the ones that I've founded. I don't know what that makes me. An entrepreneur, I suppose. All right, so we have this new AWS access key. Let's go find out what it's about. So let's get caller identity, level 6. When one of the people I work with had to take an emergency trip out of the country to get a new visa stamp. Oh, that's the worst. I've had to do that. Or I've not. I didn't have to do that. I've had coworkers who've had to do that, and it's just the worst. Man, immigration stuff. Well, tell us about your company. I will. Thanks, Barry. Yep, they cannot communicate with you about work. Yep. Right. So, as of this week, the Taggart Institute LLC exists. And it is an official LLC, a partnership between myself and Husky Hacks. So we have gone into business to build the Taggart Institute into a bigger thing, basically. We want it to become a place that everyone can come, feel welcomed and supported, and have access to low-cost, really, really high-quality instructional material for general technology and cybersecurity training. We're not trying to be the next TCM. We don't want to scale like that. If they're the Harvard of cybersecurity, we are more after being like the small liberal arts college that everybody loves, right? That's kind of the goal. We love the community that we have, and we love the close-knit nature of it and how everybody supports each other. And we know that if we get too big, that's not possible. But we also know that there are some things that, frankly, a little bit of income revenue can help do for us. So I'll give you a perfect example. One of the things that I want to do is make sure I want to make sure that we have good translations and transcriptions for all of our videos, right? So that our content is accessible to people who don't speak English as a first language or don't speak English, right? So making that available in high quality is an expense, and I want to make sure that we can cover that cost with the proceeds from course sales. So that's one example. Berkeley, yeah, the UC. It's as a University of California employee, sure. I wouldn't say that TCM is the Harvard of cybersecurity research, but you know what? Maybe Harvard's not the right. Maybe I want like Penn State, right? Just in terms of scale, the number of people who go through those doors to get their training. Penn State main campus, oh my god, 40,000 people. No thank you. Although, it's not like UCLA is that much smaller. I'm not sure what veteran-owned has to do with the analogy I'm making. That is true, but that's not the point that I'm making. Okay, so we have this thing. It's called Level 6. We don't really know what we can do with it yet, though. Oh yeah, there's an IAM subcommand. Let's check that out. Oh yeah, they're pretty cool. So I have a course with them, which is Practical Web App Security and Testing. Henry, thank you so much for the follow. So what can we do with IAM? Get user policy. Okay. Get user. Interesting. All right. Now, what about get user policy? What can I do with this thing? Oh, username. Level 6. Is there like a describe? No. List access keys. List attached user policies. What are we after here? Let's try list attached user policies. What an ergonomic command name. Ooh, interesting. Oh man, I gotta update that. That's wrong. Nightbot. Let's try that again. There we go. Spent good money for that domain. Another reason for the business. Okay. So we have two policies here. And One of them is security audit, which means we'll be able to list. Actually, we have no idea what this policy does, but we do have list API gateways, which is cool, I guess. API gateways. API gateway. We have a list. No. You're always told hack the box is the best option for OSCP prep. No. Hard no. Hack the box by itself is not sufficient. I mean, you can do it, but it's the worst way possible. Look, I am not a fan of the try harder culture. I think that's a really awful way of encouraging learners, and it's a great way of discouraging people. Yes, you have to try hard. You have to make an effort. But the thing with try harder is that if you refuse to answer questions for people who are looking for help, you just discourage them. See, the thing is, a lot of times when you get stuck on Hack the Box, you don't even know the language to ask the questions that you would need to ask. And when you are that kind of stuck, telling or being told to try harder doesn't help. I was like, was I not before? Now, sure, some people just want the answers. But generally speaking, if you're making a good faith effort, you should be rewarded with support, not dismissal. And so I don't love the fact that Hack the Box by itself doesn't really provide that support. Now, HTB Academy is like a different situation, but even then, if you're going to do Hack the Box, that's fine, but Hack the Box with support. So, yes, TCM has the ethical hacking course that is really good. They have their own cert, the PNPT, which is also, I think, a really nice kind of prelude to OSCP if that is your objective. For a much lower price point, you can do an actual pen test and get feedback on your work, all that kind of stuff, with a much more humane situation than a 24-hour slog. What else? Oh, yeah. So, yeah, you want to have that course material to support what you're doing. So for me, I haven't taken the OSCP. I have taken pen testing certs. For me, it is... Hack the Box is like a good litmus test for when you're ready. If you're able to complete those boxes, like medium boxes on Hack the Box without help, then you have a reasonable expectation that you are prepared for that kind of exam. The other thing that's really great about Hack the Box are the write-ups. If you are stuck and you don't know what to do next, do not feel ashamed about looking at the write-up. That is, in fact, what you should do. You should look at the write-up because that will give you the language to figure out what to do next, what to look up, what to learn more about. So go learn that thing that is mentioned in the write-up, and then also complete the box with the support of the write-up. Here's the trick, though. If you use the write-up, and I think you should if you're stuck like that. I truly believe you should if you're stuck like that. Use the write-up, but then go back and do it again and try to do it without the write-up. And not just do it, but make sure as you perform the steps to get through the box, do you know why you're doing it? Do you know how it works? If you can explain that to yourself or to somebody else, you don't just have the muscle memory, you have the conceptual understanding of the thing that is involved in tackling that box. And that is what you really need to understand, to master these skills. It's not just being able to type stuff into a terminal. It's being able to understand why you're doing it and the thought process behind exploitation. And that being able to explain it to yourself, either in writing or to somebody else, is the ultimate litmus test as to whether you have mastered the material. Okay, we're trying to list API gateways here. Get REST APIs, maybe. Let's try get REST APIs. Ooh, that didn't work. List API gateways. Did I just not see that? List. Scribe. So what do we have in get? Get resource. You know what? Maybe I need to know more about this this policy to know everything it lets me do. So let's go back to IAM. And is there something like a get policy? Okay, let's try get policy. And presumably it wants the ARN, so we'll do, okay, policy ARN, this guy right here. It's the whole thing. Okay, what can I do with this? This doesn't tell me the permissions. Why? There's a version. And there's a get policy version. Okay, so what we want to do is get policy version. And then version B4? Nope, that didn't work. Version ID. Okay. So we're able to get REST APIs. Action. So we're able to make API or get requests on APIs at REST APIs here. So any REST APIs that are set up, we're able to make requests on them, but we don't yet know what they are. So here's the gateway, and then it goes to one of these things. Lambda, maybe. What can we do with Lambda? List functions, maybe? I'd be shocked if we can do that. Oh, snap. Ah. Yeah, you know what, Dean? I'm not that worried about it. For the past week, I haven't looked at the bird site, and I've been living entirely on Mastodon, and I don't feel like I'm missing out. There are a couple of ornery researchers, weirdly, all of whom are Windows researchers. I don't know, like, that's just a thing that I've noticed. The folks who are just like, I'm not going to Mastodon, meh, or have some weird like belief in Twitter's ability to survive. They're all of them, like, they're all Windows researchers and Florian Roth. So people who are invested, sorry, this is going to be like my most strident, I apologize, but like people who are super invested in closed source software and a climate denier. So maybe not the greatest sample set for the folks whose lead you want to follow for the future of social networking. Just a thought. Okay, so we have this list. We actually found a function. That's handy. So what do we have here? We have this function name of level 6. And it's at US West function level 6. So if I understand this correctly, I think the trick is that we need to like reassemble the URL because Lambda URLs have a guessable structure, right? A function URL is dedicated. You can create and configure function URLs. No, that's not what I mean. Kinetic, thank you so much for the follow. This is really not what I mean. All right. Maybe there's something else in Lambda that we can help with this. Because this is the function. And now we have a function name. We did get function. Get policy, maybe? So get policy. What is it? Lambda? Lambda, get policy. Function name. Okay. Those are case sensitive. Interesting. Is there a way to get the code for the Lambda? Probably not from here. Where's the intro to Mastodon? 1 second. Let me find it. I have kind of two that I did. Yeah. So ironically, it's a Twitter thread. I'm going to show you a cool trick, actually. So if you don't want to give Twitter any traffic, you can use knitter and just replace the twitter.com component with knitter.it. And what it gives you is a no JavaScript link to Twitter content. So yeah, hopefully this is helpful to you. Yeah, there's a lot, and I've put some links to other intros as well in here. And also, no joke, if you're in our Discord, if you ask a question about Mastodon, I'm all in. So if you have some question about how it works or how to get started, ask. I will probably answer, because I want to get as many folks into federated social networking as possible. It's been really nice watching, because I honestly started playing with Mastodon in 2018. And then I got much more serious about it back in April when the first whispers of EM doing this started happening. I'm not going to say like I was right, but I did see the writing on the wall that this wasn't going to go well. And so I got more serious about it at that point. And so my experience there has been not always perfect, but so much calmer and so much more human. The way stuff there is structured is just, it does not bring out the worst of our natures the way that Twitter does. And it's obvious why. We are not the product, right? That there are no ads. It's all community supported. And there's also no algorithm that is driving engagement, which is, of course, just shoot, what's the word I want? It's just a nice way of saying make you really angry. That's what driving engagement is, right? Is to generate anger, because anger is what makes people pay attention. There are structural things that prevent that kind of cruelty that we're used to seeing, that toxicity that we're used to seeing. It's not entirely absent. There's still lots of ways to be mean to somebody, but there are consequences. And the fact that every individual instance, if you're on a smaller instance, right, not one of the gigantic ones, it feels like a community, right? It feels like you owe something to the people that you're sharing that space with, and they owe something to you in terms of civility and consideration. I'm not ready to go into this right now because I want to kind of talk about this more when we launch the course. By the way, Responsible Red Teaming from Husky launches on Monday, and we're going to be doing a bonus launch party stream on Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific. To talk a little bit about the course, we're going to go through one of the labs in there. But the reason I bring it up is because one of the things that is discussed a lot in that course is ethics, right? like actual ethics. What, like, thinking about deontology versus consequentialism. And then we also actually add in something that a lot of folks don't know about in terms of the study of ethics, which is a little bit of a newer idea called the ethics of care, which is built on the work from the 70s of Carol Gilligan, who is a psychologist who was finally trying to overcome some of the weirdly sexist stuff about dismissing the moral judgments of women that had been true since the days of Sigmund Freud. And Gilligan was basically saying women's moral judgment has been dismissed because it doesn't work. It isn't described the same way that male or masculine moral judgment works, because generally speaking, boys and then men will create moral judgments based on a set of universal laws and deduce what is right or wrong from those universal laws, right? Generally speaking, at least according to Gilligan's research, women do not do that. What women do, and I know I'm speaking in binaries, understand that those are ends of a spectrum. I get that. Women are brought up much more aware of relationships. And so their judgment about right and wrong is a lot more about maintaining relationships and what actions impact are going to have on the people to whom you are related in one way or another. So it's not so much about making moral judgments about this kind of abstract idea of justice, but thinking about real world impact, basically. But that had been dismissed for a long, long time. So Gilligan was trying to bring that back into the conversation, and then Joan Tronto took that on and then wrote this thing called the Ethics of Care. And the Ethics of Care sets up this model for ethical decision making, which is basically, what is it that we owe to one another, and how do we respond? How do we pay attention to those people who are in our lives and to whom we owe and whom we're responsible for? And also, how does that translate into a governing system? How would a state built on the ethics of care look differently than a more universal deontological ethics? Sorry, I've gone off the deep end here, but the basic point I'm trying to make, bringing it back around, is that in an ethics of care, your primary responsibility is to pay attention to others, think about what is required of you to treat them well, and also, and they would reciprocate. And that mechanism, that exchange, is encouraged in the design of the Fediverse and Mastodon. It is discouraged in the design of commercial social media. That was the point that I was trying to make. I'm sorry it took so long to get there. Let's try to get back to this thing and try to figure out how it works. So we have this policy now. And what did we learn from this? Allow API gateway.amazonaws.com. Invoke function. Here we go. So we have this, and this right here, this ARN, this is like the API gateway ID, right? Let's look this up actually in the documentation. AWS Lambda. Yeah, because this is complicated enough. I want to know exactly what I got back here. Returns the resource-based IAM policy for a function. Okay, so what is the resource IAM policy? Right. So the resource was this here. Execute API US West 2 right here. So this is like an API ID, I think. This number right here, or this key. So if it's an API, and we're back in API gateways again. What are we after? API gateway. Get domain name, get export, get gateway responses. Get model, maybe? What is a stage? Let me try get model first. What does it need? Rest. I don't have a model, do I? What is a gateway get stage? Stage resource. Okay. What about get stages? Stages. What are stages? A stage is a named reference to a deployment. Oh, okay. So that's interesting. Yes, just a guy. I'm a bit under the weather. My apologies. This is the first cold I've had since before the Pando. I don't like it. It turns out 2+ years of perfect health makes you just a big old baby about the sniffles. Okay, so this makes sense. So an API, so a stage is like a deployment, right? And so if we're thinking about Azure functions, which I'm a little bit more familiar with, that is actually where the code lives. It lives in a deployment, right? Whether it's your test or your production or whatever it is. So I think that this is the layer that we need to get to. So let's try get stages and REST API ID. I'm going to try this because it doesn't want an R and it wants an ID. Hey, okay. So we get a deployment here. And the stage name is prod. So if I do get stage and then stage name prod, that worked. Okay. The deployment ID is here. So again, my thing is that I know there's a structure to Lambda functions, right? Maybe what I need to do is just make one. That's gonna suck though. I don't want to do that. We need. I need to like the right thing to Google here. These are website endpoints. All right, let's try this. Just we need Lambda and URL structure. That still seems like it's talking about. Ah ha ha ha! This might actually give us the answer. Each position in the URL structure is a resource. This is it. So it looks like it's the API ID. Execute API, the region .amazonabos.com/stage, and then the name of the function, which was what, level 6, right? So if we curl so it's here dot execute API dot US West 2, we think, dot Amazon AWS.com/prod/level 6. Ah, come on. This was 2. Was there a part of this that wasn't Good God. We got it. That's crazy that it's case sensitive. We got there. It is common to give people and entities read-only permissions such as security audit policy. The ability to read your own and others' IAM policies can really help an attacker figure out what exists in your environment and look for weaknesses and mistakes. So a bunch of stuff just happened. We basically walked down all of the things that we could read because of the security audit policy. And because, this is something to know, because these resources like API gateways have guessable URLs, right? If you put all the pieces together, it's not security through obscurity, right? If you have access to those permissions, you can piece this stuff together. It can take some time, but you can do it. All right, we finished flaws.cloud. And I think that's actually a pretty good spot to end it for today. I know that there's other stuff like Paku or Terragoat. I think we'll leave those for other times because there's plenty more to do in the cloud. And we will do much more. One of the things that I kind of want to do and be for you is a resource on cloud stuff because I think it's important. I think a lot more stuff is moving there. And honestly, there isn't enough out there. There's not enough material, even in, try Hack Me or Hack the Box. There's not enough about it. And because it's really hard to set up training like that, right? Because you can't set up vulnerable cloud instances like that super easily. So we're going to do more cloud stuff on this stream, certainly. But for now, I think we're going to call it a day and let everybody enjoy the rest of their Saturday wherever you are. Now, luckily, Taggart Institute affiliate GoPro is streaming, but also be aware that the hack list is a list of all sorts of cool InfoSec streamers. And you should check those out if you haven't. As a reminder, I will be back with Husky on Monday night, live at 5 p.m. Pacific, which is 1 a.m. UTC, talking about the launch of Responsible Red Teaming, which does launch on Monday. We'll do that early in the day, so if you want to get started on the course, you can just do that. And then, of course, I'll be back on Wednesday doing some programming or maybe some other sorts of hackery. So that's going to do it for today, friends. We'll raid GoPro. So until next time, please be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and happy hacking. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, for sure. At least that one's on the archive.